Recorded. Excellent. If you can all click on that and give your consent to join the meeting. Good evening and welcome to the community meeting for State Route 116 Lakeville Highway Intersection Safety Project. I'm Erica Sawyer and I'll be your meeting moderator this evening. Before we get started, I'd like to point out a couple of key details. We already mentioned this meeting is being recorded. This meeting will consist of a presentation by Caltrans, followed by Q&A. We should have ample time to get to everyone's questions and comments. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Next slide, please. Caltrans is holding this meeting in accordance with the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The statement on the screen includes Caltrans non-discrimination policy. Caltrans will make every effort to ensure non-discrimination in all of its services, programs, and activities. In addition, Caltrans will facilitate meaningful participation in the transportation planning process in a non-discriminatory manner. A link for a voluntary demographic survey is included in the chat and will be provided again at the end of the presentation. Caltrans collects this data to comply with its non-discriminatory policy. The statement is provided in both English and on the next slide in Spanish. This information can also be found on Caltrans's website. Next slide, please. The purpose of this meeting is to provide an overview of this very important safety project. In just a few minutes, we will hear from the Caltrans project development team, who will provide an overview of the project scope, alternatives, and project schedule. Please note that the environmental document has been circulated for public input and comments will be accepted through May 3rd. On the next slide, we'll discuss how to provide public comment. Your input is very important. Slide. Caltrans welcomes your input, and following the conclusion of this meeting, we will have a question and answer session. Please use the chat function located on the bottom of your screen to enter in your questions or comments. Should you wish to ask your question verbally, please raise your hand. That function can be found under the reactions. During the presentation, we will be scanning the chat and looking for raised hands. And once we get to the Q&A, we will be going in the order of questions received in the chat and hands raised. If you're having problems with Zoom, we have tech support on hand. Please send a chat to tech support and we'll try to resolve your issue. Please note that questions received during this meeting are not considered formal comments. We ask that you provide your comments in writing. Comments can be submitted via email or by mail, and the details are in the chat. Next slide, please. Copies of the draft environmental documents that have been circulated are available at local public libraries and on the Caltrans District 4 website. As mentioned previously, comments, questions received during this meeting are informational only. We welcome you to submit formal comments. You can do so by emailing. The email is here on the screen, as well as U.S. Postal Mail. The address is here on the screen. This information is also in the chat box. Next slide, please. And now I'd like to introduce you to the Caltrans project development team who have been hard at work on this project. This team includes Alex Lim, project management for Caltrans District 4 North Counties. We are also joined by Max Lammert, acting office chief for the Office of Environmental Analysis. We will also hear from Tin Nguyen with Design Special Projects, Wesley Bexton with the Office of Landscape Architecture, and Senior Planner Amy Dewar-Smith. And now I'd like to turn this over to Alex. If you'd like to say a few words and introduce yourself.
Hi, hello. My name is Alex. I'm the acting project manager from Caltrans District 4. Honored to bring together our multidisciplinary project development team. Max.
Excellent. Over to you, Max.
Thanks, Erica and Alex. So I will now provide a quick overview of the environmental process that we've conducted for the project so far. First, I'd like to introduce the two main environmental laws that Caltrans is complying with for the project. These are the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, and the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA. CEQA is a major state environmental law that guides the environmental process for state agencies. NEPA is a similar federal law. These laws require lead agencies, which is Caltrans for this project, to prepare environmental documentation for proposed projects. Next slide. To satisfy the requirements of CEQA, Caltrans has prepared and released for public comment a draft initial study with a proposed negative declaration, or ISND. Caltrans will be preparing a categorical exclusion to comply with NEPA before project approval. The purpose of an ISND is to present the project and its alternatives to the public and resource agencies, disclose the environmental impacts of the project, and allow the public to comment on the project. We prepared an ISND because we did not identify any significant impacts from the project that would require mitigation measures to reduce to a less than significant level. Our ISND evaluated the resource areas you see on your screen, and I will quickly read through them now. Aesthetics, agriculture and forest resources, air quality, biological resources, cultural resources, energy, geology and soils, greenhouse gas emissions, hazardous materials, hydrology and water quality, land use and planning, mineral resources, noise, population and housing, public services, recreation, transportation, tribal cultural resources, utilities and service systems, and finally, wildfire. Next slide, please. So now let's briefly cover where we're at in the environmental process. So we've initiated the project, which involved collecting environmental data, identifying issues and concerns in the project area, and then we developed a preliminary purpose and need and a conceptual design to address that purpose and need. We then developed and refined project alternatives that are feasible and meet the purpose and need of the project. Now we're at the stage where we have prepared the draft ISND and I've circulated it for public comment. And now that you have a little bit of a better idea of the environmental process and what we've done so far, I will hand the presentation back over to Alex Lim, our Caltrans project manager, to provide an overview of the project.
Thank you, Max. In this section, we'll give a brief overview of the project. We'll go over project location, existing conditions, purpose and need, and our two built alternatives, signalization and roundabout. Next slide, please. This safety improvement project is located on Sonoma State Route 116 at the three-legged intersection of Lakeville Highway and Stagecoach Road. The segment of 116 begins in Petaluma and traverses eastward along Stagecoach Road towards Big Bend near Shelbyville and State Route 121. South of the intersection is Lakeville Highway, which leads to State Route 37. Next slide, please. Existing conditions. State Route 116 is a conventional two-lane rural highway. As previously mentioned, this is a three-legged intersection, or a T's intersection, and is partially controlled by the stop sign as you approach the intersection from Stagecoach Road. As you can see from the top picture, this left turn onto the southbound Lakeville Highway is particularly dangerous, often resulting in broadside collisions. Next slide, please. The project purpose and the need. The purpose of this project is to reduce the number of collisions by improving safety at the intersection. This project is needed due to an established pattern of broadside collisions involving vehicles on Lakeville Highway with the left-turning vehicles from the stop sign. There's been 15 accidents in a 5-year period from 2011 to 2015. Additional 15 crashes, 5 of them involving injuries, were reported between July 2018 and June 2021. Next slide, please. To give the overview of the built alternative, I'd like to invite Tim from design.
Thank you, Alex. As previously mentioned, the purpose of this project is to reduce the number and the severity of the crashes occurred at this intersection. Now, I'd like to discuss in the aspects of design how the project will meet this purpose. There are two design alternatives studied for the project. Alternative 1 will realign, widen, and install traffic signal at the intersection. This alternative involves widening of the existing bridge and the construction of the retaining wall to widen the roadway. Alternative 2 will construct 180-foot diameter roundabout about 15 feet southeast of the existing intersection. This alternative 2 includes northbound right-hand bypass lane from the Lake Bay Highway to Stage Gulch Road, an 8-foot wide shared use path for the pedestrian and bicyclists. And to assist you all in the visualizing of both alternatives, I'd like to hand over the presentation to Wesley from Catherine Landscape Architecture team, who developed the 360 model for the presentation. Alex, Wesley.
Thanks, Tim. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to share my screen here. All right, so here we are at the existing conditions. I'm going to start with some views of the photographic views of the site. So here we are at Lakeville Highway looking toward the intersection from the east. So we're looking west along Lakeville Highway, and to the right is Stage Gulch Road. Here's Ernie's Tin Bar, which is right at the intersection. Here is looking eastbound from the west on Lakeville Highway to the intersection. Again, you can see Ernie's Tin Bar at the intersection itself, and a very large row of eucalyptus that come almost up to the corner of the intersection. And then there's one solitary, very large eucalyptus at the intersection itself. And finally, this is looking down Stage Gulch Road to the intersection, and you can see these lovely hills beyond the intersection. Ernie's is to the right here. And at night, there is some lighting at this intersection, but it's pretty dark. Okay, so what are the primary things that are going to change at this intersection with either alternative? There's going to be some widening of the roadway. We're going to have tree impacts to that eucalyptus tree row. And in one alternative, there will be some tree removals at the far west end of this existing retaining wall. So moving to alternative 1, you can see the majority of the eucalyptus are removed in order to accomplish the goals of creating a right-hand turn lane, a bicycle lane through the intersection, and 2 travel lanes through the intersection from the east. There's a widening of the existing bridge that's just to the west of the intersection, 3 lanes of travel, bike lanes, and a new retaining wall that's moved over further from the roadway to align with the edge of the bridge. And then there's a reconfiguration of the lanes on Stage Gulch Road to simplify. From the driver's perspective, this is looking toward Ernie's Tin Bar. Looking west on Lakeville Highway, and looking east on Lakeville Highway. For the roundabout alternative, the intersection moves farther from Ernie's Tin Bar to allow it to remain. There are 2 lanes, 1 lane entering and 1 lane leaving the roundabout from the east, 1 lane entering and leaving from the west, and 1 lane entering and leaving the roundabout from the north. There is also a bypass lane from Lakeville Highway onto Stage Gulch Road. The intersection itself includes a central island, which has a truck apron. That's this gray area. That's a different type of paving to help trucks make the turns through the roundabout. And there's a mounded central island that would be treated with inert materials such as rocks or large boulders that allow for some visual change at the intersection so that you can see that there's the need to drive around it rather than through it. So looking west at the intersection, you can see these are called splitter and buffer islands that help direct travel and separate bikes and pedestrians from the roadway. You can see the central island here in the middle. Looking south from Stage Gulch Road, you can see the same features. And looking east, you can see the new bridge, the new retaining wall, and the intersection itself. At Ernie's Tin Bar, there are some changes to how you access the parking lot. It's not appropriate to have vehicles driving directly from a parking lot into and out of the roundabout. So there is a new driveway configuration shown here prior to the roundabout that allows cars to safely enter and exit Ernie's Tin Bar parking lot. Okay, so I'm going to go back to alternative 1, and we're going to talk about nighttime. At night, there's going to be a little bit more light under the signalized intersection. There's a need for a little bit more light to light the entire intersection. Under alternative 2, we have substantially more light. It's a larger intersection, and all features of the intersection, including the splitter islands as you enter and exit the roundabout, need to be lit. Additionally, where we have pedestrian and bicycle crossings, those need to be lit as well to provide safe pedestrian and bicycle crossing through the roundabout. So I invite you to explore this. I believe there will be a link provided to this tour, and you're welcome to look through it yourself, and please get us comments. We love to hear from the public, and we appreciate any questions you have at the meeting tonight. I'll turn it back to the host.
All right, thank you, Wesley. And with that, I'd like to welcome our next presenter.
Well, hi, everyone. Thanks for being here this evening. My name is Amy Dewar-Smith, as Erica mentioned, and I'm a senior planner, and I worked on helping write the environmental document. As Max mentioned, the purpose of the environmental document is really to assess how those two project alternatives might affect the environment. And the document evaluates impacts on 20 different resource categories, from aesthetics to wildfire risk. And based on that analysis, both alternatives were determined to have no impact on these 4 resources, in part because some of those resources aren't present in our project area, like mineral resources, and also in part because this project would not be growth inducing. We're not increasing the capacity for the roadway. So no additional housing is projected as a result of this project. Next slide. But both alternatives were found to have some environmental effects, obviously, and the environmental document does assess both the short-term and the long-term effects of the alternatives. So construction-related short-term effects include things like noise during construction, ground disturbance, how traffic control would be done during construction and might have some temporary effects on people trying to get through the intersection while it's being, while those changes are being constructed. And then permanent impacts include some of the things that Wesley was pointing out in his presentation, like the visual changes, such as the tree removals. Boy, the roundabout will sure look different than existing condition. And when we assess the environmental effects, we look at what is out there now, and then how will that change in the future, and look at that comparison. So this document determined that the effects on these 16 resources were less than significant. And why would that be? Well, a big part of that is because Caltrans, as standard practice, incorporates measures that would minimize and avoid a lot of impacts. And those are features, in part, they're features that they implement on all projects, things like during construction, best management practices to control erosion and sediment runoff and noise control, and also some project-specific measures that include things like pre-construction surveys for nesting birds before trees are removed. So we would try to remove those trees outside of a nesting bird season and also confirm that there's no birds nesting in it before we remove them. So the project alternatives would have less than significant impacts on these 16 subject areas. But I think the main thing that the environmental analysis does is it really helps distinguish between the two alternatives. So I'm going to just mention a few things about the differences between the alternatives and the impacts that they would have. So as Wesley pointed out, some of the visual changes include new overhead lighting, and that lighting is much more pronounced in the roundabout alternative 2, than in the signalization alternative. Another difference is that the roundabout will require a lot more land in order to construct, and part of that land is existing farmland, grazing land. So that's disclosed and discussed in the environmental document. Alternative 1, which is the signalization, as Alex mentioned, and I believe Wesley mentioned, because we need to widen the approach from Petaluma and kind of push those lanes a little further back and allow enough room for folks turning left onto Stage Gulch Road, we are going to have to widen that existing bridge. And as many of you know, creeks are areas for sensitive biological resources, species, and plants. So alternative 1 will require that bridge widening, which has some temporary effects on those sensitive resources. And I encourage you to read the document for more details on those, on the project impacts. So one of the biggest differences in the alternatives, which I've already mentioned, is the amount of property or land that's required to construct and operate those projects. So I'm going to present some very preliminary estimates of right-of-way that may be required for each alternative. They're very preliminary because we aren't in detailed design at this point. So this just gives you a sense of the order of magnitude between the two alternatives. So the yellow areas shown hatched here are what we call temporary construction easements. They are not permanent land acquisitions. They are just areas that we feel the need for just a little extra room while we're building the new facility. So we would request those temporary construction easements during the time of construction. The orange, oh, the same thing for the blue hatch. I know it's hard to see, but the county actually is the authority for Lakeville Highway. So we would also need that temporary construction easement from the county to work within their roadway. The orange hashed area is the area that we would be looking to have permanent right-of-way from, and that area for alternative 1 is needed to provide enough room for the dedicated right turn lane and the bike lane. So in contrast, you can see in the next slide the area that would be needed for the roundabout, and it's substantially larger than the area needed for the signalization. So again, this preliminary map shows areas in orange that would be needed. And I would like to point out that although both alternatives do require some land, neither alternative would require the demolition or relocation of any structures. So no homes, even outbuildings and commercial properties would be displaced by either alternative. The need for that property would be defined in much more detail during the detailed design phase after a preferred alternative is selected. And then the project design is completed in more detail so we know with much better accuracy what lands would be needed. So as Max mentioned, we're in the draft environmental analysis phase now. So what comes next? So what we're doing, what the intention is for the draft environmental document is to take into consideration all the comments that and input that we received from you, from all the other neighbors who've received the document or received notice of the document, agencies, and other interested parties and stakeholders. And once we've received that information, Caltrans will identify a preferred alternative, and that will be disclosed in the final environmental document, which we anticipate will happen in May of this year. After that final environmental document has been adopted by Caltrans, the Caltrans would move into the detailed design phase and obtain permits as needed to construct the work, and along with the right-of-way determination and acquisition. And the project will be constructed at right now, we're projecting for 2025 for project construction. Next slide. So I appreciate that you're here, and I'm hoping that some of you are here because you received a postcard in the mail. I just wanted to point out that as part of the environmental review, Caltrans has reached out to the community through direct mail, through newspaper notices, both in the Press Democrat and the weekly Petaluma paper. We sent emails directly to elected officials and agency representatives. The posting is on the Caltrans website. I did want to apologize. It's come to our attention that on about half of the postcards, the QR code at the bottom was cut off and wasn't working. Now the URL or that HTTPS link that's there, that still works, but I did want to apologize for that occurring at the print shop, and we don't want that to happen again. And then the other error that someone pointed out is that although the email is correct in a couple places, there was a typo in that as well. So that there's no space, and you'll see it in the chat with the SR 116 stage Gulch is all one word. So the last thing we're going to say, and I think I'm the third or fourth person to say it, is that we really, really want your comments. So on the next slide, we reiterate that we're looking to have comments submitted through postal mail or through the email address shown here. And the last day for comments are May 3rd. We want to know what environmental resources and impacts are of most concern to you. Are there other avoidance measures that we should be taking into consideration? And which alternative do you prefer and why? So those are the questions that we are hoping you will provide us input on. So with that, I'll turn it over to Erica for our question and answer session.
All right, thank you, Amy, and thank you to all of our presenters tonight. That concludes the presentation portion of our meeting. And now we welcome your questions and comments. If anybody would like to provide their comments verbally, please raise your hand. We have gotten a couple of comments in the chat that were sent to tech support. So we'll start with those questions first. And again, as Amy said, there's a number of ways that you can provide your input, but to make your comments part of the formal record, please send them via email or U.S. Postal Service. So we will go ahead and get started. Our first question: will it be easier or more difficult for the fire department to exit the station at 5090 Lakeville? All right. And Alex, is that a question that you'd like to start our discussion and perhaps take us through the 360 tour or get the discussion started? Will it be easier or more difficult for the fire department, which is located at 5090 Lakeville, to exit the station?
Yeah, Wesley, it's I think fire stations to the left. I don't know if there's a. Yeah, go for it. Sorry.
It's in this direction, right? Yeah.
Yes.
No, it's actually one of those buildings on Lopez Road. So see that first major building to the left?
Yeah, you were looking at Wesley to the left there.
Okay.
It's
Thank you.
it's one of those
Yeah.
rectangular buildings right there on the left side of your screen. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, this is Tianwen from design. The project footprint, even though we need to widen the bridge, the project widening limit doesn't reach to the entrance of the fire station. So it doesn't really impact the operation of the fire truck. And if when the fire truck come up, and then let's say if we go with the alternative to roundabout, the alternative to roundabout allow the big truck to easily navigate through that roundabout. So there won't be any issue with the maneuverability of the fire truck in and out of the station with the either alternative.
Okay, thank you, Tinwin. And there's a related question. Will agricultural equipment with a wheel width of 12 inches and larger be able to get around the roundabout? So this is about agricultural equipment, tractors, and that sort of farm equipment with a wheel width of 12 inches and larger. Will they be able to get around the roundabout?
Hey, Erica, before we move on from the last project, or the last question, I do want to say that, during construction, we do reach out to all emergency services in the project area. And so we don't anticipate construction of either alternative to impact the operations of the fire department here. I just wanted to make sure that that was said before we moved on.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Max. To answer the second question about the agricultural, the trailer truck, our design use a design vehicle, the STAA 67 and the California Liga, which is quite a pretty long truck and is comparable to the agricultural trailer. And then when you look at the roundabout, even though the roundabout in the middle, it seems like the whole thing is mounted. The darker shape at the center is the mounted one. The lighter gray is traversable. So for the big truck, the wheel track can be on that lighter gray area, so they can navigate through that roundabout easily.
I have a follow-up question related to this, and perhaps the commenter can talk through it. Are you mostly concerned about the circular motion, or are you concerned about the exit and entry points into and out of the roundabout?
And if that commenter wants to raise their hand, we can unmute you, or you can unmute yourself and provide further input.
They're saying exiting and entering.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it can be easily maneuverable through that roundabout. Even though if you just follow the roadway surface, which is a dark area in the presentation, you may see it's pretty winding with a lot of curvature, right? But actually, truck wheel can be mounted on the lighter gray portion of the roundabout, so it doesn't really provide you the path with the sharp turn. So it can easily be navigated through the roundabout.
Okay, and we'll hear if I think there's related comments to that. We did have one person that had their hand raised, Andrea Kraut, if you'd like to make your comments.
Hi, thank you. I'm here on behalf of Supervisor David Rabbit, and I just had a comment. We have heard from constituents on Lopes Road about concern for emergency response time for the volunteer fire station. And Just curious if there's been any conversations about including Lopes Road in the design as a fourth spoke to the intersection. Thank you.
All right, if we could ask the PDT, Max or Alex, if you'd like to address that.
Yeah, so the primary purpose of this project is to improve safety at the intersection. So so currently it is not in the scope to improve the condition of the Lopes Road, but yeah, certainly we can discuss it on the as a PDT post comments.
Great, thank you, Alex. And a related question about working with stakeholders. Will there be a chance for the property owners to meet on site with Caltrans to go over certain issues in person? Alex, if you'd like to respond to that, or if the commenter would also like to provide more detail about what issues they're concerned about. Or will there be a chance for the property owners to meet on site with Caltrans to go over certain issues in person? Or is this a right-of-way question?
Yeah, I guess we would need to know the detail of the question, I guess.
I'm just wondering, hi, I'm Ernie Altenruther, I own Ernie's Tin Bar. I'm just wondering if there'll be a chance for us to ask certain rather specific questions about how things will change, what property you'll need to, go away for right of way, things of that nature that will occur.
Kim, I don't know if you can help answer this.
I think in terms of that honest timber, the alternative, both alternative doesn't impact in operation of the honey timbers or the right-of-way takes. I think alternative two to move farther away from the bar, right? So it even with the alternative one, which is a signalized intersection, it doesn't have impact to the operation of the honey timber. As you can see here, the structure are more with the correct location. So you are still going to have that same operability of the bar. It doesn't really impact much.
Yeah,
If you can specify what is your specific concern, then we can get more detail into it.
Yeah, and just to jump in here and provide a little bit more background about why we're here right now. It sounds like Ernest, that you have concerns about the project, which makes sense considering you're a business owner here. So really through the end of the public comment period, May 3rd, we really want to know those concerns, and we encourage you to submit them to us by all the methods that have been disclosed as part of this meeting. And the PDT will review those concerns and address them in our final environmental document. But as for a meeting on site, I think the PDT can step away after this meeting and consider that request.
All right, thank you, Max. We have a couple of questions here related to access to Ernie's Bar and about the traffic safety. The question here is, which alternative will be better in terms of traffic safety, and which will be better for traffic level of service operation? Max, is this something you or Amy could address?
For safety, we have somebody, we have an expert from safety, Rick.
Yeah, hi, good evening. My name is Rick Young. I'm with Caltrans Traffic Engineering. I can talk a little bit about the traffic safety aspect. So both alternative, the signalization and the roundabout alternative, they both provide safety benefit in terms of addressing the purpose and need of this project, primarily to reduce the number of these right angle broadside type collision, but also to reduce the severity. So in terms of safety performance, I think they are fairly similar. They do have different operational, or the way drivers have to negotiate the intersections. And I think part of our further analysis, and as we look at the two different alternatives, we will be looking at some of the traffic handling capacity, traffic operation issue as we before we make that final choice. So hope that answers your question. If there's any follow-up, please let me know.
Excellent. Thank you, Rick. Related question. My main concerns are with access to Ernie's, and I see no access to the property across the street in the roundabout option. Okay, is that something we can walk through?
Yeah, and I believe Wesley shows in the roundabout option, Wesley shows the exit and entry to the Arnie Spa from traveling westbound on the Stagecoach Road.
And again, we've got a link to the 360 tour in the chat. This is live up on the internet. You can take this for a cruise, and all of the things that Wesley is doing are, buttons that you can access, see the existing conditions, buy alternatives, daytime, nighttime view.
Excuse me, Erica. I want to ask a follow-up question to that commenter, which is, are they talking about this area as well?
That is the piece of property I'm talking about.
Okay, thank you. Can somebody address that?
So using the roundabout option, how would you access to that property across the street? Win or Alex?
Yeah, so this property is part of the acquisition and the roundabout. If we could pull up the right-of-way preliminary drawings, it is shown as a acquisition for it. So yes, that's the AB property underneath. Tim, feel free to add anything if you have it.
Just that doesn't acquire all the property that's across the street there, and because of the creek location, there is no access to that property if you can't get it off of Lakeville Highway on the east side of the bridge.
Hey, Ernest, I think we're going to have to come back and take another look at this, but thank you so much for bringing this to our attention.
Yep, please submit it. Yeah, thank you.
All right, the PDT will be taking that under consideration. Another question here, will the signalization alternative accommodate STAA trucks? So again, a question about the movement of bigger equipment on the roundabout. Will the signalization alternative accommodate STAA trucks?
Yes, it will. Both alternative will accommodate STAA truck and California Legal truck.
Great. Okay. A couple more questions here about Ernie's Bar. Who would be responsible for updating Ernie's parking lot to work with the new access point? Sounds like this is also a design question of how this is all going to work. Who would be responsible for updating Ernie's parking lot to work with the new access point? Alex, is this another design feature that the PDT will be looking at between now and the final and into the permitting for the project?
Yeah, this will be this will be discussed down the line as a project as a PDT.
Great. All right, another question. Will the afternoon commute back up past the driveway? And Ernest, I'm imagining if this is also your comment, is this past Ernie's driveway?
This wasn't my comment.
Okay, if someone wants to specify which driveway, the comment is, will the afternoon commute back up past the driveway? I think we need to know which driveway. Will the new changes encroach? Yes,
Hey,
please.
Erica, it looks like we've got Craig's hand up. Is that in response to this question?
All right, Craig, if you can unmute yourself.
Okay.
Or,
The driveway was the fire station. In the afternoon, the left-hand turn lane backs up past the Lopes Road, sometimes quite lengthy. And the other thing is that we also need access to the green field just west of Stage Gulch Road, where Ernie's talking about the landlocked buildings. We currently enter and exit right there near the intersection, and we would need access to get into that field.
okay,
Let
thank
me,
you.
if I understand that the question has two parts, that the first is the left-hand turning traffic blocking the fire station, the entrance in the peak hour. If you look at the alternative one, the reason that we need to widen the bridge is because we lengthen the left-hand pocket to provide more capacity to the left-hand traffic in the alternative one, which is a signalized intersection. That is a reason that we need to widen the bridge, and now we will have the more capacity with the alternative one for the left-hand traffic. And if you look at the alternative two doesn't, it's the Y intersection. So traffic doesn't stop. All the traffic will be keep moving. It just, the entry traffic just need to Y to the circulating traffic to enter into that roundabout movement. And so in terms of the movement of the traffic, this alternative two roundabout option might provide the better option, not to block the entrance to the fire station.
Well, it's quite hard to get out of Lopes Road, especially during the afternoon commute, and head towards Petaluma. Between the left-hand turn people and all the traffic coming, there's kind of a blind curve right at the current intersection, and the visibility is not great. The length is not great. And so it's sometimes quite dangerous to pull out of there and go left towards Petaluma.
Yeah, Craig, this sounds like the pretty much the purpose of this project, except that it's on a different intersection, because this project is from the collisions that we're seeing is from Stage Gulch Road making that left turn onto the Lakeville highway. You're describing the same thing, but it's on the Lopes Road. Yeah, with that being said, at this time, we do have to reiterate that the purpose of this project is mainly to focus on the safety improvement at the intersection. But yeah, we as a PDT will look at to see if any design changes can accommodate this.
Okay, and I have the same concern as Ernie does about the property across from the tin bar in the roundabout option. It doesn't show any way that we can get off of the roundabout to enter that field or Ernie's property there.
Yes, I believe we received one of the other comments about that, but yeah, we'll have to we need to take a look at it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if we pull back up alternative one, it does look like based on the simulations we have, we'll have a similar issue with that. So it looks like we have to take another look at these alternatives and see what we can do.
Thank you for the comment.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Max. At this point, we have no other questions or comments. Is there anyone else who would like to provide feedback? You can raise your hand or enter your questions directly into the chat box. Again, we've talked about, all of the ways that you can provide comments. The public comment period is open until May 3rd. Questions and comments are being accepted via email as well as postal mail. Craig, you have your hand up.
Yes.
To make another comment.
The house right there on Lopes Road that's right next to the highway, is the new project going to encroach on his house and make the road closer to that residence?
Alex or Tin, would you like to address that? We can zoom in on that house.
If you look at the two alternatives, the alternative one involves the widening of the roadway on the both sides. So I think the roadway will be widened towards the house in the alternative one. But in terms of impact, we need to look closely. I don't think that in the beginning of the presentation that Amy shown that right-of-way impact, right? So that pink area on that slide is what is going to have that permanent impact. Other than that, we don't have any permanent impact.
I think the question though, just to further answer, this is Amy. We will take a look at that because even though the work is within the existing Caltrans right-of-way at that location, there is a possibility that the traveled lane may be closer to that home, even though that work is not on the adjacent property. I will point out that there is a bike lane being added, so there is a bit of a buffer, but we'd have to do a little bit. I will ask design. We have to get with design and do a little bit of analysis to see whether the edge of the traveled lane is any closer to that house.
Thank you.
Might be that it might not be because of the bike lane.
All right, thank you, Amy.
Thank you,
Ernest,
Amy.
I see you have your hand raised.
Would it be possible for you to go to the existing conditions for 1 second for my question? If you look in the parking lot of Ernie's Tin Bar, you'll see there's a small building there that is where our bathrooms are actually located. In the other two options, that building is not at all represented.
Yeah, I think that was an oversight, Ernest. I don't think that either alternative touches that. I think design should confirm that.
Yes, Wesley. Yeah, we can confirm that none of the alternative either impact or touch that the small building.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Wesley. We have a few more comments here. I'm joining somewhat late, so you may have addressed this, but is it possible to do a light instead? So would that be a stoplight, a signal light? So if like to discuss, does one design help more with traffic pulsing or calming further down Lakeville towards 37? Those are the two comments that we've got. So can Caltrans do a stoplight instead? And how does this help with traffic pulsing or calming further down Lakeville towards 37? Who would like to start?
I can start. I think you joined late, so we have two alternatives. And the first alternative is a new traffic light at this intersection. So we would put in a traffic light to control all three legs of that T intersection. So red, green, blue, red, yellow, green at each location. So the roundabout is our second alternative. So we're considering both, and that's part of why we're asking for people's input on what you would, which one you think might function better, or what concerns you might have with each. As far as the traffic control, I think that we might need to take that back to traffic operations, the PDT. But I would ask Alex or Tin if you have any comments on how either alternative might change speeds. I have heard that people really let it fly on the way down Lakeville Highway towards Highway 37.
Yeah, we don't have anybody from the traffic operation to answer the question. But from my knowledge, as for queuing, even though this is not the main purpose, but roundabout is in general, it's just improved the traffic operations quite a bit. In the peak hour, I understand that there's a significant queuing on Stage Crossroad, but the roundabout option should minimize that quite a bit.
Hey, Alex, can I maybe
Yes,
I can
yes.
add some information to this question. I think the question has to do about whether there's any traffic calming effect, not on 116, not on the state highway, but on the county road on Lakeville Highway going toward 37. So my response would be, because these improvements are being done at the intersection, I don't know if there's a lot of traffic calming effect, right, further downstream away from the intersection. Again, the main purpose of this project is to improve the safety at the intersection itself. So I don't think there's going to be much of traffic calming, only because the scope of this project is away from the kind of the main line of a Lakeville Highway. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that further clarification. All right, we have one more comment so far, and that comment is, how can we get a copy of the recording? This recording will be hosted on Caltrans's site. We'll provide more information once that is up. It'll either be on the website or on the Caltrans YouTube site. Any other questions or comments from this group?
Hey,
Again, as we've met.
Erica,
Mac?
sorry. Just to clarify, we posted a lot of different links to different websites here, but it's the same website that you could find the Caltrans environmental document. So that's if you accessed this Zoom link from a Caltrans website, that's the website where we will be posting the link to the recording.
Thank you, Max. And we just got another comment. What is the average speed in a roundabout of this size? Average speed for a roundabout of this size?
It's the entry speed. There are two different speeds when we talk about the roundabout. One is the entry speed, the traffic enter the roundabout, which is designed at around 25 mph, and circulating speed which is the vehicle used when circulating maneuvering the roundabout, which is around 19 mph.
Thank you, Tin Win. Any other questions? And again, we welcome these questions and comments. To have your questions be a part of the official record, please provide them in writing. You can email them to us. We've got the email address posted in the chat. You can also send them by U.S. Postal Service mail. We welcome your comments. Email is here in the chat, SR116 stagegulch at dot.ca.gov. Any other questions, comments, any other parts of this presentation that you'd like to take a look at? As Max mentioned, there's a lot of materials that are already on the Caltrans website. You can access the draft environmental document that has been circulated. You'll be able to find this presentation and the recording.
Not to mention this lovely 360 tour we've got here.
Yes. And that also has its own survey embedded into that, I think. So we'd love to get your thoughts. If you'd like to take the survey that's embedded in the 360 tour, we also had a survey link earlier to Caltrans, a non-discrimination policy. If you'd like to tell us in the chat how you heard about this meeting, it's always really good to hear about how the word gets out for these meetings. Any other comments as we wrap up? I'll turn this over to Alex or the PDT if there are any other comments, seeing as there are no further questions or comments at this time. Alex or Max, any closing remarks?
All I'll say is thanks everyone for joining, and please, we want to hear from you. So I think I'm not sure. So we have the email up on the screen. I'm not sure if we could put the postal address back up again. Maybe we could just flip back to that page in the presentation with the comment submittal information. Oh, and yeah, one final plug as well for those two SurveyMonkey surveys. Those really help us with our compliance with Title VI. If you could fill that out, it's voluntary and totally confidential. Well, not confidential, it's anonymous is what I should say. So your name is not attached to the information you provide there. But yeah, the information to submit a comment is here. Could we post the link that is there for the environmental documents website so that people know where to find the environmental document in its virtual format? And yeah, please submit comments by May 3rd.
Yes, definitely. Thank you everyone for attending. We really appreciate your time and your inputs. Please submit the comments. It definitely helped us. A couple of comments already made me think about the project development. So it's definitely appreciate the comments.
All right, thank you to the PDT. Thank you all for attending tonight's meeting. We welcome the input. Have a wonderful evening and nice weekend. Thank you all. This concludes the meeting.